Our current document is 13 pages and it is broken into sections. So taking a look at the document, you can see that down at the bottom here, it says section break, and this in the lower left-hand corner is section 1. As I scroll through the document, you can see when I click my mouse cursor into the second page, it changes to section 2. As I continue scrolling past the third page, at the bottom of the third page, you can see that there's a section break. Section breaks are a little different than page breaks because section breaks will allow formatting changes to be applied to just a specific section. So if I wanted a specific margin for one section and a different margin for another section, I can do that as long as I use section breaks. So today we'll be adding different margins in different sections, as well as changing the orientation of the pages within the different sections. We're going to scroll back up to the top of the document just by clicking inside the section, and then down in the lower left-hand corner it will tell us we're in section 1. We'll be able to adjust this section's margin by going up to the Layout tab and choosing Margins. The existing margin is highlighted in a gray box, so it's currently set to 1 inch by 1 inch. We're going to change this section to a 1/2 inch all the way around, or the narrow setting. You can see that the ruler changed on both the left and the right margins have been adjusted to a 1/2 inch. If we scroll down to section 2, you can see that section 2 appears not to have changed. And once I place my cursor inside section 2, the lower left section says 2. We can check by clicking on the margins and see that 1 inch all the way around margin, or the normal margin, is still set for this particular section. Because we're dealing with section breaks, the margin only affected the section. If there are no section breaks within the document, the changing of the margin to the narrow setting would have been applied to the entire document. Now that we're in section 2, we're going to go ahead and change the orientation of this section. So this section actually has 2 pages. Both of those pages we're going to change to landscape. You can see by the visual preview that page 1 is still in the portrait orientation, where page 2 is now in the landscape orientation. This landscape orientation has been applied to the entire section 2. So if we scroll down, you can see that it's got a page 2, and then section 3, if I click my mouse pointer inside this section, you can see that it states it's section 3. It has been left at the portrait setting, as well as the 1 inch margins. So we can adjust our margins and adjust our page orientations from the Layout tab. This is also called page setup because we are dealing with the page setup group, and right next to the lower right-hand corner of this page setup group is the page setup dialog box. So if we select or click on that icon, the page setup dialog box opens up, allowing us to change our margins, our orientation, and whether we want to apply it to multiple pages, such as making mirror margins, 2 pages per sheet, or even a book fold. And what do we apply these settings to? By just using the ribbon and using the commands, we were limited to changing our margins to that one particular section. But if I had multiple sections within this document and I want to just choose a few clicks to change the entire margin, I would use this page setup dialog box to go ahead and adjust the margins and tell it to do the entire document. So I'm going to apply this 1/2 inch to the entire document by clicking OK, and you can see that section 3 is now set at the narrow 1/2 inch margin. The entire document has been modified. So using the page setup can be a lot easier than going section from section when you have lots of different sections within the page. If you wanted the landscape throughout the entire document, remember using the ribbon, it's applying it to that section only. You can see down here it says this section. Again, drop it down. Say you want the entire document as landscape, and it will then adjust and change the entire document to landscape. So we're going to undo that. Using page setup dialog box, you can also change the paper size. The paper size is available to be modified from the ribbon, as well as choosing more paper sizes from the drop-down menu will also open up the page setup dialog box where you can choose your paper size and how the paper will be printed and from what tray. You can see it gives you a little preview, and you can apply it not only to the specific section but to the entire document. Your layout is this is where a section will start. So if you say I want a new section, you can either do a continuous, new column, a new page, even page, or an odd page section. So you can actually set your section pages right from the dialog box. You can do headers and footers by selecting odd and even or first page. That is setting your page up to say I'm going to have a different header and footer versus a different even header and footer. Your page alignment, whether you want it up at the top, centered, or justified, and what your header and footer margin would be from the edge. And again, you can choose this section only, or you can apply this formatting to your entire document. In addition to those features of page breaks, section breaks, you also have column breaks. So when we get into the column, we'll show you how you can add a column break. Text wrapping is here as well, so it will adjust the text to wrap around the particular object. Let's go ahead and add a column. To add a column to existing text, the best way to do it is to select it. So I'm going to reduce the size of this page so that you can see it. And I'm going to select all of the text on this page because I would like this page to have 2 columns. It's existing text, so I will select it, go up to columns, and then choose 2. It places a continuous section break before the columns and after the column. So any margin setting that I do will only be to this particular section as long as it is highlighted. So I can actually change my margins. So let's do 1.5. This is dramatic, but I think it'll get the point across that now my columns margins have been changed, but the rest of the page or document has not. As long as I keep it selected, I can apply formatting to just this section. If I choose to change the columns, I can just use the drop-down and change it to 3. Now the way the columns work is they run down and then up and over to the right, down and up and over to the right. So this is going to play a role if you decide that you would like a part of this text to be a header above the existing 3 columns. For example, I'll take this very first paragraph by highlighting it and making it a single column. What it does is it creates its own new section, breaking it apart from the other 3. So we have a section for that sentence and then a section for the 3 columns. If I were to turn off the Show and Hide codes from the Home tab to the paragraph marker, you can see that it's much easier seeing and clear since we don't have all those hidden codes in there. If you create columns on a blank page, just remember that the text is going to go down and then up and to the right as you fill in the content. Sometimes when you're working with a lot of text, it's a lot easier to find where errors are or changes that need to be made if every single line was actually numbered, and we can do that. Let's go to the top of our document. We're going to go to the layout, and then we're going to go to line numbers. Now, line numbers are different than page numbers because line numbers reference specific lines in the document so that you can very quickly and easily use the line number that will be in the margin to find the context and perhaps make changes to it. So by turning on line numbers, it gives us some options. A continuous means it'll start at 1 and continue until there's no more lines left. Or we can restart the numbering at each page or at each section. If there is a paragraph that you want to suppress, meaning not number, you can go to that paragraph and turn on that option and it won't number it. So for example, if I wanted this particular paragraph I have enclosed not to be numbered, I've got my cursor in there, go up to line numbers and turn on that suppression. You can see it's check marked. Now if I can do the continuous, everything else will be numbered except for this paragraph. As I scroll through my document, you can see that the sections are not numbered just that one page because that one page is one section. So how do we get the entire document to be numbered? First, let's remove the existing one. Then you're going to hit Control-A to select all of the text within the entire document. You come up to the line numbers and you hit Continuous. Now as I scroll through my sections, you can see each line is numbered, including the columns. So if somebody is editing my document and they tell me to go to line 300, I would be able to easily find it. And if I go to the end of the document, you can see I have 302 because it does count the paragraph markers. Going to Home, turn on the Show and Hide, and you can see there's a paragraph marker there, therefore it will be numbered. To turn them off, I always Control-A to select everything, go back up to the layout, line numbers, and none. Control-Home will take us to the top of the document. So it's a nice little feature, not well known, but I think can be very useful. Sometimes you want to dress up your pages in a document by using page borders or background settings such as color. To add a page border, there's a couple different ways that you can access it. So one of them is on the home page, and it's near the borders. If you drop down that drop-down menu and come down to borders and shading, the page border is located behind the normal borders. This borders applies to only paragraphs, but page border will apply to an entire document or an entire section. So if we wanted our entire document to have a page border, then I would select my page border. Perhaps I want a box, or maybe even one with a shadow. I can change the color, maybe make it red, and make it a little bit thick. So that's how it will look on each page because I'm applying it to the entire document. I click OK, and you can see there's my shadow. And as I scroll through, you can see it's on every single page. I'm going to go ahead and remove that because if I chose to only have a particular section, let's say filtering out the junk, I would like this page bordered. I can go to the Design tab and go all the way over to the right-hand side and choose Page Borders. It opens up this exact same dialog box, but with the tab already set. So again, I'm going to choose a 3D, and I'm going to make it a nice blue color. Maybe add a little bit of, let's just leave it at the 3D. There we go. And I'm going to choose this section because my cursor is in this section. And then when I click OK, it will apply that border to this section. Remember, the columns are also sections as well. To remove the border from this section, go to Page Borders, and you can unclick each one, or you can choose none. Both of those options will be the same. You can choose just this section, or you can apply it to the entire document to remove all borders, and all the borders will be removed. You can also change the color of the background by choosing Page Color. If you choose a dark color, it automatically makes the text a light color. Just the text, not any of the headings that are on here. So you might want to use a lighter color. It does apply it to the entire document. You can also use fill effects. So it will give you the gradient look. If you want to remove the page color, you just click on the page color button and select no color. Another really handy feature when you're working on a document that perhaps is a draft is a watermark. As I scroll up to get to our letter, we're going to add a pre-existing watermark. This little gallery has some that are already made that Microsoft puts in here, ready for us to use. We have different types, different words, different angles. So we're going to go ahead and put draft in there. Now it's ever so slight. You can see the word draft. It's a very faint gray. Sometimes it's easier for us to view when we're on a webinar. If I make the background darker, you can actually see that the word draft is in there. So a watermark can be an existing one, or we can create a custom one. Before we can create our custom one, we do need to remove this one. So we'll come down to the Remove Watermark. And now I no longer have a watermark on the page. I can now make our custom watermark. You can use the picture, but I want to warn you that if the picture's background is not transparent, it will come in as the entire box. So it doesn't look as great as most people would think it would. Text is your best option. You can type in your text. You can choose a font. You can choose the size if you don't want it to automatically be selected for you, and you could choose a color. So if you want it a little bit like a darker pink, you can apply it. You can even choose diagonal or horizontal, and I'm going to hit apply. Now, because this particular font is very thin, you can see that it does come up in pink. That gives me an opportunity to say, you know, maybe I want something a little bit bolder. So we can scroll down here, and let's choose this rounded, a little bigger, and apply. Much better. Click OK. You can see that it comes through as pink. A little easier to see if I put a dark color on there. So you can create your own, or you can use the existing watermarks. Just make sure that when you're done and your document is now final, that you remove that watermark. Another really good feature to have when you're creating very long documents is adding a cover page. And there are, again, existing cover pages that Microsoft creates and puts in here for us to use, or we can create our own. To the insert so that I can find my cover pages. I just have my cursor at the very top, but it knows already that cover pages are placed at the top of the document. So cursor placement isn't as important as it is with some of the other formatting features. So we're going to open up the cover page gallery, and you can see that there are some pretty nice looking cover pages that are in here. Some that are pretty extensive. For example, I can select this nice blue one. It inserts the page as a page break, and I can then replace the document title and the subtitle with my text, and then we go right into my document. If I chose to have a specific cover page, let's go ahead and remove this cover page first. So we go back to cover page and remove, and it will take it away. You need to first sort of create your cover page. So by hitting Control-Enter or inserting a page break at the top of your document, you can then create your own cover page. Maybe put in a border. Drop down the borders, go to Border and Shading, to my page border, make it a box, and I want it on the first page only. So now I have what's considered a cover page. I'm going to select everything. I'm going to go back to the Insert, click on Cover Page, and save the selection to my cover page gallery. I then can name it. It's going to be saved in the gallery of cover pages, so it will show up when I click on this little cover page here. It's categorized as general, but you can create categories for this building block if you choose to, and it will be saved in the building block template, so it will be available the next time you use a blank document, and it will create its own page. So that's really important because you wouldn't want your cover page to be inserted in an existing page. Click OK. So now I can actually delete this and delete the page. I'm going to remove my little border that I have here. And now I'm going to insert that cover page that I just created. Go to Insert, Cover Page, and I have to scroll all the way down to the bottom. And you can see here's my cover page. It doesn't retain the border, but it does put everything else in. And then I can just add my border. As long as it's an object that I can select or text, it will save it. We can also add page numbers at this point by going over to the header and the footer section and choosing a page number. We can either choose it from the top page, the bottom page, or put it in the margin or at our current position. You can also format your page numbers to be something other than 1, 2, or 3. They could be A, B, or C, or using the Roman numeral. You can choose to have it start at 1 or continue from a previous section. Remember, sections are going to be numbered and then stopped, so you would have to apply the numbering to the entire document. Otherwise, it's going to be from section to section. So we'll go ahead and choose Roman numeral, and I'm going to click OK. So now we're going to insert page number that we just formatted to the bottom of the page in the center. So you can see right here, after our second page, not our cover page, there's my Roman numeral 1. So it will continue page numbering through the entire document. You can also do the same for our headers and our footers, but one of the things you need to pay attention to is this link to previous. This is the first page header of section 1. If I tell it that I have a different first page, then it will not put the header on my cover page. It will start with this first page. So I can click inside my header and we can type in header section 1 and we can hit enter. Now what happens when I go to section 2? There it is. And the reason it's there is because of this link to previous. Right now it's grayed out because I'm in section 2. I haven't clicked yet. Once I click inside of section 2, you can see that that link to previous is turned on. That means it will copy the header or the footer that is previous to this particular section. So I need to turn it off. Once I turn it off, I can change this to header section 2, and it will take the second page of header section 2 and make it section 2. And then here's header section 6, which is really 3 because we have the columns in there, and the columns add extra sections. We're going to pretend that they don't exist, so this is section 3. And I'm going to, again, click inside of section 3, turn off that link to previous, which will allow me to modify that section. Once I'm all done, I click Close Header and Footer, and each one of these will have a separate header from each other for each of the different sections. As long as that link to previous is turned off, and you do have to go into each of the sections to turn it off, and that's for your header and for your footers. Well, that's it for today. I hope you've learned something about how to format a page using Word 2016, and I want to thank you for joining me. Have a great rest of your afternoon.